Hello, everybody. Sorry we're a couple minutes late. That's my fault. I was jumping from one session to another. My name is Matt Savis, and I'm with the Lean Enterprise Institute, and I'm excited to introduce our next speaker, Amy Bernard. Amy is a senior manager of continuous improvement at Trinchero Family Estates, one of America's leading family-owned wineries based in Napa, California. You're probably familiar with their products. I certainly am. Before bringing lean transformation to the wine industry, Amy served 15 years in the Marine Corps. And her military experience, specifically in logistics and OpEx experience, now drives supply chain strategy and continuous improvement at Trinchero. With that, Amy, I'll turn the keys over to you.
Thank you, Matt. I'm excited to be here. Go ahead and share my screen here. All right, as it's loading up into presentation mode. Oh, no.
Ooh.
Hang on. Can you
Well,
still hear me?
yeah, we can still hear you, Amy.
Okay, can you see the screen?
We can see the screen. I think it's okay to just stick with the. Oh, there we
I
go.
think
Now
we're
we're in
back.
full
Okay,
presentation mode, and it looks good.
thank you. Sorry about that. All right. Again, thank you for having me. As Matt said, I'm Amy Bernard. I'm a Senior Manager of Continuous Improvement at Trinchero Family Wine and Spirits. And I'm really excited to be able to talk to you today. I want to share a little bit of my journey as well as the journey that we're on at Trinchero and speak to you about leadership, culture, and the Trinchero Way Transformation. So, I want to talk about these topics. First, we're going to start with a little bit about leadership and influence, since we are, really talking about leadership during this conference. The idea that we all as lean leaders, whether we chose it or not, we've chosen a path of leadership, and I want to talk about the things that influenced you along the way. And then we're going to talk about leadership development, some of the ways that develop my leadership skills and how they are applicable in the winery today and the work that we're doing. And then this idea of culture versus lean leadership, and just meaning that, does a good culture also mean you have good lean leadership? And so we're going to talk about the differences, possible differences there, and things that we're looking to improve as well. And then our Trinchero Way transformation, as we're calling it, and what that's about, our systems, our training, and our continuous improvement. So this is a quote that I actually heard from someone just a couple weeks ago, and it just resonated with me so much that I thought it was very applicable to start with as we talk about this idea of leadership and culture. So Edgar Sheen says the only thing of real importance that leaders do is to create and manage culture. If you do not manage culture, it manages you, and you may not even be aware of the extent to which this is happening. And I hope that that resonates with you all as well, because it just, it, I think the idea that you may not even be aware of it is really important, because sometimes we don't really see the culture that's happening underneath what's right in front of us, if you will. So let's talk about leadership and influence. I'd love to ask the question of, if you think back in your life, who and what situations in your life influenced you as a leader? I would share, I'll share a couple things about my background, in the fact that while I didn't think of it as leadership at the time, there were a lot of things that influenced me and that I look back on now and see as true leadership. I would say just the way I was raised in my family, the religion that we practiced, and just the leading by example and being a leader in your community, and things like that. And then my formal education. I actually went on to Texas A&M University and got a degree in sports management, and became a swim coach for quite some time. And that, again, I actually had to take classes in leadership during my formal education. But really the inspiration of coaches in my formative years and the sports that I played, I would say were probably some of the first really big examples of leadership and how much they influenced me. And I bet most of us have had that happen to us as well. So I want to share a quick story, actually, of one of my swim coaches in high school. And I think it really speaks to this idea of influence. We had a new coach coming on deck that morning. It was an early morning practice. It was nice and dark out, and it was nice and cold. And we were all very nervous about the new coach and who he was. And as he walked on deck, he had this demeanor that was just very a commanding presence, if you will. And the way that he held himself and the confidence that he had spoke volumes. And it was a little bit intimidating at first, but then what we realized was he was probably the best leader I've ever had, the best coach, the best motivator. And again, his influence on us over the next couple of years that we swam for him was so extensive that whether he realized it or not, we all ended up following in his footsteps. He turned out to be a retired Marine from the United States Marine Corps. And there were several of us, about 8 out of the 10 of us that swam for him of the group, uh, ended up joining the military a few years later. Again, I don't remember him ever talking to us about it necessarily, or trying to recruit us in that way. But I would say that there's definitely this idea of influence that, forms a basis and a foundation in your life by certain people that you never know how it's going to manifest later. And I say that because I want us all to think about sometimes we feel like, am I leading anybody? Is anybody ever, picking up, the what I'm trying to teach them? And I hope that somewhere along the way in their life, if I don't see it, in the time that I'm with them, that I've influenced them in some way, because that makes me believe that possibly, my leadership has meant something to them. And I think that that's what we're all trying to accomplish in our lean leader culture. So then along the way, like I said, I was one of those people that joined the military. I became a logistics officer in the United States Marine Corps. And it really, the military is very good at developing leadership, either that or at forcing people out. But if you are developed in the right way, there's a lot of great skills that come out of that experience, such as developing leadership under pressure, building trust through recognition and accountability, leading by earning respect. In the military was the first time I really learned to use lean tools and gaining productivity in our efforts. And I also saw how the impact of using our tools did in increasing morale and boosting leadership and engagement. Um, so I want to talk about how these things sort of apply to us today, right? Is that this idea of developing leadership under pressure, while we're not in a life or death situation, especially in the wine industry, right? But honestly, the economy has changed. The wine industry is not going through the most positive moment that it's been in. And so there is some pressures to do things better, to look at our processes, to save money, to be more efficient. But we want to make sure that we do that the right way. And it's great to know that you can train people how to make good decisions even when they're a little bit under the gun, right? Building trust through recognition and accountability. We all know that this applies through everything that we do. If you don't recognize the good things that people do and and really even just getting to know your people, building that trust, and also giving them the accountability, looking to them and asking them, how they're doing on things and letting them know that you care about that. That really builds the trust that you need as a leader in order to get people to buy into the change that you want to make. Leading by earning respect. We're going to talk about that with the Shingo principles and the fact that respecting people is one of the biggest things that you can do, and respect goes both ways, right? And so that's a great lead into this idea of culture. And that if you do these things as a leader, are you developing the culture that you want to have? And I would say, I saw the difference when I was in the military of good cultures and bad cultures. And most of the time, it was driven by the leadership that was that that was being held from the top of the organization. So let's talk about this idea of good culture versus a culture of lean leadership. Um, at Trinchero, even from the time I started there, one of the things that really sold me on working there was the fact that great culture. And I think that meant a lot.
We still hear you, Amy. I don't know why that keeps coming up.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, so it's great to have a good social culture, right? People like working there. They love the teams that they work with. They like the people around them, and they like the job that they do. And they're skilled workers, right? And they really care about doing a good job. Some of the gaps sometimes, though, in somewhere that, mainly just has a good culture, it doesn't mean that they still might not have, or they might still have top-down decision making. They might be a performance only based culture. They might even be a make it happen culture, which we know a lot about at Trinchero. And that's not a bad thing, right? That means people care a lot. They're really passionate and they're going to do anything they can to make it happen. But it also means maybe they're not following as many processes, or maybe the processes aren't in place or formalized as they could be to make more efficient work. It can also be a gaps of siloed planning and execution, or even poorly executed change management. So the idea of, what makes lean culture so different, right? Well, you have to develop all of these things, but the idea of being an engaged leader and being and caring about your people, it continues the idea of the good culture, right? The having a good social culture, having good people who are skilled, but also giving them maybe good, clear training paths and career paths. It's about top-down guidance, engaging people and aligning at every level of the organization. And it's also about transparent communication and systems management that actually helps people thrive in that culture. It also empowers decision making because when you align at every level, people know what's going on and they're empowered to make decisions. Cross-functional, aligned planning and execution, transparent change management. Sounds perfect, right? We all want this kind of culture. And listen, the perfect situation probably doesn't exist anywhere. But these are all the things that we know as lean leaders that we can try to develop and that we're making strides to do. So we're doing this through what we're calling our Trinchero Way Transformation. And we believe that it is a vehicle for change, for changing top-down decision making to decision making, ownership, and engagement from the front line up. And that can be tough sometimes, right? But we really believe that lean results are sustainable when you create the systems, you train the leaders, and you change the culture. And that ensures that the culture of the happiness, right, the good culture, leads to actionable results. So you're bringing all of those things together. So what is our Trinchero Way transformation? Well, we're looking at it through a few different things. We have a Trinchero Way transformation roadmap that where we look at our goals and our target timelines. And we have our leadership in training and implementation. We have our management systems that we're putting in place. And we have our lean training tiers, which brings us to our continuous improvement efforts. Continuous improvement doesn't happen unless you train your people and give them the skills and the coaching and accountability. We have a productivity initiative where we really focus on budget ownership and cost consciousness, waste elimination, and really direct dollar savings year over year on their annual budgets against particular line items. And then we have our annual strategy deployment using Hoshin Conry. We are doing, we have our systems for setting goals and targets to measure in support of company goals. Again, there we have systems management. Also at work there, we have the framework that combines our strategy deployment goals with the Shingo principles and the training that we're doing. And so we're starting to see it all sort of come together. And then we're building the cross-functional teams to complete the TFE operating strategy in support of our end-to-end supply chain. So let's talk about some of the things that we're doing in this effort of the Trinchero Way Transformation. We're looking to launch very soon our TFE Principles campaign, or within operations, and this is about using the Shingo principles and looking at them from the perspective of how do we really hone in on the KPIs, the behaviors that we want to ensure are driving the results that we're trying to get, right? We're doing a lot of the work, but we got to make sure it's sustainable. And so if we don't put the key behaviors in place, and if our people don't understand what that means, if they don't understand what behaviors actually help them sustain the results, then we're not going to, make the change last. So this is something that we're going to roll out to each of our departments within operations and have them really work on with their down to the lowest level with their people. Also within our Trinchero Way transformation, we manage all of our systems through our systems map. So we have the systems listed here. This is the Shingo systems design map that you've probably seen if you're familiar. And we have, so under here you see our strategy deployment, our operating strategies, our productivity initiative, and our lean transformation. And then we have our work systems, improvement subsystems, and our reports. So I'm not going to go into all of these in detail. We don't have time for that, but I would like to show you a little bit of an example of each of these, of the work that we're doing. Again, this is all a work in progress. You will not see maybe all of these maps completed at every single level, but it's something that we're working towards. So when we talk about our Hoshin Conry and our strategy deployment, this is just an excerpt from our scorecard, a much larger scorecard, obviously, but this shows you how it cascades from our goals down to the department, from the company goals to department goals to some of our tactics and activities, and then our targets, and how we work with our teams on a monthly basis to be measuring their targets, making sure that they're making progress towards the goal that they're trying to achieve. And then lower levels of systems in this would be their department action plans and their A3 management tools and forms that they're using for their own tracking purposes. And then we have our operating strategy work. This is something, this particular form, this is a high level, what we call functional operating strategy form. And this was to get people aligned along the supply chain, along our end-to-end supply chain strategy. This was so that everybody actually understands what is your critical activities within your area, what are your capabilities and resources, what KPIs are you measuring and how are you measuring them? And then what are your critical handoffs, which meaning do your upstream and downstream understand and do they have a formalized handoff? And is everybody aligned on those things? So this is something that is a work in progress that we're doing, but we're really excited about how this is going to help with transparency of communication, transparency of change, all of these things that we're talking about. And this would then cascade to a lower what we call the tactical operating strategy, which is a little bit more, gets into all of the activities that then lead to the standard work within each team or department. And then also this is going to help everyone with their measurement and adherence to the KPIs that they're setting for their teams. And then for our productivity initiative, I just wanted to share a glimpse of our dashboard that we've built that shows some of the projects that we have going on from different parts of the operations team. And this is a great way for them to be motivated and to see the progress of the numbers that we set goals for how much productivity we would like to accomplish. And quarterly, they brief out on where they're at on their projects and the amount of savings that they've reached at that point in time. So we have a project tracker that goes alongside of this that actually details out each of the projects. And then most of those projects also have A3 charters that go along with them. For our continuous improvement training program, we've really formalized this over the last couple of years, and we look at it from tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 of how we want our folks to progress, our employees to progress through their continuous improvement training. But it's up to each of the departments to decide Everybody's pretty busy, right? And so they have to figure out how can they make this training a priority? How do they fit it into their annual training cycle? And but we give them some parameters here. We have base capability, we have their core elements training, and we have their certification level training. And so they can look at it from the targets of who they want to go, what their targets are for all their frontline employees, for operators at certain levels and leads and above to do certain things. Um, and our training tiers that we have set up consist of some training that we do through LEI. We also use Gemba Academy, and as I've talked about, we definitely use the Shingo course for our leadership training. And I really think that, and then of course, we've taken some of those and made some training of our own that we do in-house as well. And we're seeing really good results from that. And the idea is that we're building train the trainers within our programs that can continue to give, regular trainings within their teams as well. And so back to this idea of the Shingo Principles campaign that we're rolling out. This is just a example of what it would look like for a poster for one team. And they might say, they might pick 2 to 3 different principles that they want to focus on for that quarter. And so respect every individual might be one of those principles. And so, you have the bullets here that say, what is respect every individual? What does that mean? And then you have the behaviors that the teams come up with together, right? And they say, okay, what are the behaviors that we want to work on in order to make sure that we're respecting every individual? And then they say, okay, what are the systems that we know are monitoring these behaviors and are helping us drive these results? So this is really something that everybody can see. It's a way to again, clearly communicate what it is that we're trying to achieve and get buy-in at every level and everyone's engagement. So it looks like we got it all together, right? We've got all these systems in place. Let me tell you, it's a journey. And a lot of what you've seen today is still in progress. But we really do feel like operations is leading the way in lean at TFE. And we know that the work that we're doing is paying off. We've seen the results. We've seen it in cross-functional efforts across the organization. However, it's a journey of trial and error, right? I presented it to you today in a really great systematic way. The truth is we didn't roll it out that way. These are things we've learned as we've gone on and tried to make it better as we go and try to make it easier for the team so that they really buy into it as well. So we continue to share our work with the executive team. We participate in strategic and cross-functional projects, and we share our strategy deployment scorecards. And we just want to continue to work with our operating strategies and really have an influence on the end-to-end processes in the company. So all that to say, we believe lean leadership is absolutely a combination of training, of tools, of principles, KPIs and KBIs, and the systems that manage it. Successful outcomes are only sustainable when leadership builds the culture of the business. So I hope that some of that resonated with you today, and I would love to talk with you more. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. And I just want to say thank you again for having me here. And I love to end with this slide because it just shows, again, because I work in the wine industry, this is what people think I do all day. What I really do is project management. So um, that's it. Any questions, Matt? How did we do?
That was great, Amy. Yeah, there are actually a bunch of questions.
Oh.
Unfortunately, we'll probably only be able to get to one or two. It seems everybody's very impressed with the structured management process that you just ran through there. One question I think a lot of people are still dealing with is the digital versus physical aspect of all of this. Is all of this managed digitally, or do you use physical spaces for this as well?
Both, right? I would say probably mainly digitally, but none of it works unless you have, the standard work, the visual standard. We
Oop, it looks like we lost Amy. It looks like she was having trouble with her Zoom application throughout her presentation. I regret that it looks like she has left the space entirely. We were close to time anyway. I will reach out to Amy and express my gratitude and also apologize for leaving the space. But thank you all for joining. I hope you got a lot out of the presentation and are enjoying the rest of the event. I'll close this space out. Farewell.